Okay.
Yeah.
We are rolling.
Okay. Starting the interview. What instruments did you play? Do you play, and when did you learn
No preamble. Okay, we're just jumping in.
them?
Sorry.
Different questions.
Okay.
Cut around.
Yeah, okay. It's not like a podcast. Okay, so the first instrument I started to play was the piano. And I was like through private lessons, you can say. Like, down in that piano downstairs that I have in my parents' home in Connecticut, there's a baby grand piano that we got from my aunt. And I got that when I was about 10 years old. And my parents would just, on the weekends, hire private piano lesson to teach me. And I never really was into it. It was more like a chore, like an activity type thing that, they did the same with karate, and I actually kind of like karate, but you know how your parents sign you up for activities, swimming, and you just kind of do it because they tell you to. That was kind of what piano was like. So I never really cared that much about it, and it was more of a chore than a passion. Although I did like playing it, and I did like music. I always liked music. And when I got to about junior year of high school is when I relearned the piano. But I had forgotten all the music theory. So it was really just about going on YouTube and like slowing down, like looking piano tutorial, I don't know, like Daft Punk song or any pop song at the time that was big on the radio. And it was about going on YouTube, looking at the piano tutorial for it. So no sheet music, because I'm illiterate in sheet music, and just copying the hand movements of the player. And so I would analyze these songs or the videos, play the songs, and then when people would ask me if I play piano, wouldn't know what answer to give because I didn't know any music theory or at all, but I knew how to play some songs rather well because the technique that I had learned when I was a kid stayed. And so my technique was good. My ability to read or understand what chords I was playing, 0. That all changed when I was in college, when I actually started trying to write music. When you start to learn about songwriting, you kind of have to know a little bit about music theory because some of the chords have other chords that follow better than certain other chords, right? So if you're in the key of C, a G follows a minor better than it follows an F sharp, just an F sharp. That would sound odd because it's not in the key of C. So anyways, small little things of music theory. I all learned that after like my junior year of college, and that helped me get way better at the piano just because now I understood what I was playing and why I was playing it, and the ability to write songs and know what chord follows what and what could follow what really helped me with improvising and really enjoying the piano for what it is, and the ability to be free as opposed to like sticking to a YouTube script, right? So started off with piano. The second instrument that came into my life was, take that back. The second instrument that came into my life, surprisingly, was the bass guitar. Because when I was in middle school, there was Rock Band and the Guitar Hero video games. And I was really into, jamming with my friends. Everyone who played those video games, we played them together, but we also wanted to actually get good at the instruments. And we loved rock music and alternative rock music, like The Killers and Guns N' Roses and stuff like that. And so what happened was like my friends from Greenwich, we would gather on the weekends and try and become a band. But I was like in 6th grade, so I was very small. And if you see a bass guitar, there's one in the corner over there. They're rather big and heavy. And so I was like the little guy just trying to, play bass guitar because I thought it was cool. The bass always sounds really nice on good speakers, and felt like the foundation of the music to me. So I started playing bass, but it was too heavy and too big for me to really get good at it because my little fingers really had a hard time pulling down those fat strings. And so I gave up on it rather quickly, and I switched to the guitar. So I actually started with bass and then went to the guitar, which is rather unusual, I think. For most people, they start with the guitar because it's more accessible, because playing a guitar on your own, you can carry a song with a vocal rather than bass and vocal, which sounds a little strange, just isolated. But then I picked up guitar early teens. And similar to piano, I had no music theory knowledge when I started playing guitar. I would just go on Ultimate Guitar tabs and look up the tablatures for different songs I liked and kind of copy what they tell me. So if you don't know what they look like, it's like all 6 strings are represented by lines going from left to right on a page, and it tells you where to put your fingers and where they go next. So it's like, okay, if you want to play a C chord, it'd be 0 0 1 0 2 3 0. And so that's what it would look like. They'd all be in a line. And then if it switches to another chord, it just tells you where to place your fingers, and it doesn't actually teach you any music theory unless you go looking for it. And a lot of these songs are good for a reason, and it's usually because of the songwriting and the music theory behind it, So I just played, but I would soak it all in, right? So I knew a lot of songs. I knew how to play them, and that was fun, especially when I started writing music, to go back and play those songs and be like, oh, I see what this person did, like this artist did. Like, that's actually really smart, and that's helped me grow my skills in songwriting. Learning from the greats, really. It's always a good strategy. So guitar became my main instrument in college just because of access. So when I really started to get into music, the guitar was more easily available. And I mean, Chicago has a lot of pianos just everywhere. My dorm had a piano. The arts building, the theater building where I did half of my studies, had pianos like on every floor. And I definitely took advantage of those. But in the dorm room, when it's more intimate, private, I don't have to walk anywhere, I would just be playing video games and then transition to, if I'm bored of playing FIFA or something, I would go pick up my guitar and do what I've been doing since I was a teenager, which was play the music, the tabs, not knowing what I was doing, but just singing along. At Chicago, they had a lot of piano rooms and stuff, and I definitely took advantage of those. But there was an intimacy and availability to the acoustic guitar in my dorm room. And so at first I started off on my childhood guitar, which is a Yamaha, and it's over there in the corner, which is actually kind of a tough one. They said at Guitar Center that it was an easy guitar to start with for beginners, but no, those strings, like, I would bleed in my fingers just from playing when I was a kid, just because they're so, I guess, like, high tense and high up on the fretboard, and they're heavy. And so, and that guitar is big. It's like a dreadnought size, which is the biggest size they have. So whatever. But then, eventually I got myself a higher end guitar, a Taylor. And that like really changed a lot, because playing on something that's comfortable to play on and that sounds and stays in tune for a long time, like really made it more enjoyable and really allowed me to become passionate about the playing of the guitar. And that's also when I started trying to actually develop my voice, because I always could sing. I'd sing along to things and it sounded okay, but I had no idea like how to sing in terms of breath control and like essentially most importantly, what my vocal range really is. Because when you're a kid and you're listening to pop songs and that's what you want to play back on your guitar, it's always like Ed Sheeran or One Direction or something like that, like that's what's playing on the radio, Maroon 5, and those are all tenors, like about, I'd say 70%, that's off the top of my head. It just feels like most of the men you hear singing on the radio are tenors, and they have high voices and they can sing really high. So I would like rip my vocal cords all the time as a kid, trying to imitate them. And I was like, I know I sound good when I sing, but I don't sing high well. So for the longest time, I thought I was a tenor. It's just like, oh, I didn't realize there was other registers of the voice. And I went, when I was in college and I was getting really passionate about playing guitar, I knew I could sing along, but I was like, why can't I sing along to the songs I like? Why can't I kill an Ed Sheeran song? Do it and like hit all those notes. Like, what's different? And when I started learning from a private teacher at the University of Chicago, and I would do it like once a week for like a quarter, so 10 weeks, I just really started to think more about like, okay, maybe I don't need to hit those high notes. Like maybe there's songs that are more in my range. And that changed a lot. So that allowed me to become more comfortable with performance, just knowing what I can sing and what I can't sing, right? And I also started to understand that I could use a capo or change the key of a song to make it fit my vocal range so that the high notes are more achievable to me. And that just made, again, like it's all about increasing my passion in the instruments, in the performance, and in the playing of it. And at the time, I would never perform for anyone else, not even my family. I'm not even joking. It was very, very private. Very private. I would just play and sing in my room to no one. And it was like very few people even knew I liked doing that, like music. They knew me more for like being a sports fan or a video game fan. And so it's probably very weird to a lot of people that I'm now making music, especially people that knew me in high school. My friends knew, kind of. They knew that I liked to sing and do all that, but they didn't know like, oh, he like actually really likes it so much that he wants to make stuff. The other thing that happened, which was coinciding with my growing passion for music, was my interest in just creating things. I really, really, really got into Star Wars, for example, when they brought back the new trilogy. So it was like 2014, 2015 with The Force Awakens. And I was in, the beginning of my college years. And that's almost the most turbulent years in your life in terms of you're exiting childhood and you're becoming an adult, but you don't know what you're going to be yet. And you just know you're going to become something. You don't know what that is. And I looked like, I was just like, ugh, I went into the school for its economics program, because when you're a kid, everyone's telling you, oh, you have to go you have to go do business at the best school you can get into. and then you're going to get a job at like Goldman Sachs. You know, that's like what everyone's parents wants, or them to be a doctor or a lawyer, right? And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you choose to do for your own reasons. For me, that was not something that was appealing once I started getting to that age where I had to start figuring out what I was going to do for myself. And that's when I really became passionate about Star Wars and about that hero's journey and about, you know, growing into an adult, but being someone who's kind of giving back to the people that grew around them. That's like the hero of their community. That's what like Rey is. That's what Luke Skywalker is. And that's why they're so like not necessarily relatable, but so many people, so many kids look up to them and dream about being these characters. You know, that's why they're the main character of those series, or at least the point of view character, if you want to put it that way. So I started thinking about going into the film industry because I wanted to write my own Star Wars movies. I was like, George Lucas really inspired me to become a creative person, right? I want to do the same for other people. I want to like go be able to have something that people can look to when they're going through difficult times, like lonely times, like I guess like any time where there's a struggle, things are not going well in their lives, you know, whether it's their family, whether it's their friends, drama, they always have something to look to. And that's what Star Wars became for me. And that's why it just kind of like helped me cope with this transition period of adulthood and childhood, or childhood to adulthood. And it gave me kind of like a roadmap. It's like, oh, I want to be like Luke Skywalker, or I want to be like George Lucas, because Lucas, they're all kind of, he's basing Luke Skywalker off himself, or he sees himself in Luke Skywalker. So I was like, I should do the same. Like I should do something similar to that, my own story. So I joined. They didn't have a really pertinent film program. You know, U Chicago, it's not like USC or NYU Tisch. So I looked into the cinema studies program and I was like, not super into it. It felt more analytical and theory based. So that's not what I was going to need to become George Lucas, right? I needed practice and like actually doing things, making my own stuff to get good. And so I looked at the other kind of programs they had. And there was the TAPS program, the Theater and Performance Studies program, which was not film, but they actually valued practice and workshops, and like half the classes are not theory classes on purpose. And there I could learn directing. I could learn screenwriting, script writing, playwriting. I could learn acting, whatever I chose. It's not just like theater's got so many different roles, and it's like the cousin of film, cinema. So it was kind of an obvious choice in the end to me to apply to the theater program and do that, which was so strange because like I was so not that kind of person to the eyes of everyone else. You know, I was like an econ major, and I did finish my econ degree. So to be like, oh yeah, I do economics and theater, a lot of people are like, what? Like, why do you do both? Like, they're so different worlds, you know, like being an artsy kid and like I guess like a more analytical person, creative in analytics. So, but that's when like I really feel like my journey started. It's joining the theater program, and not even just like the clubs, like literally just the major, because I got to really go deep in depth with writing, the writing process, and reading all these great works, right? Which gave me inspiration beyond just Star Wars and the other movies I liked, like Batman and stuff. Every teenager likes that. So I did. I just learned so much, and I wanted to be a screenwriter for a bit. I wanted to be a director, but I was almost like too shy to join Fire Escape Films, like the film club, or like join the actual theater club. Also because I felt like I wouldn't get along necessarily with those people, but I didn't know them. I was just I know, I saw she was wearing I know. But I didn't know you. I didn't even know, you know what I'm saying? I didn't even know who was in it. I was just like, in my eyes, it was like not something I wanted to do. I just didn't want to do it. I was like, no, I'm going to learn. I want to do things myself and not go be bottom of the ring, work my way up at some club. I was already part of a club. I was part of the rugby team, and I was not going to just do, and I had worked my way up to the top, and I'm not going to go do that again my like last quarter of junior year and only have senior year left to enjoy Fire Escape, but I'd be like at the bottom of the ladder. That's just my assumption. I don't even know if that's how it works. But I have a feeling that the theater club isn't just going to give me directing and writing rights to their feature play, right? There's other kids who've been doing it since freshman year. And so forget that. That was never gonna be an option for me. And so I just kind of went to Hollywood on an internship to try and get some real world experience. And it wasn't for like a movie studio, but it was for a web studio. So they made like web podcasts and web shorts and stuff you find on the internet, like, Group 9 Media. They own Thrillist, Now This, The Dodo, and The Seeker, the science one. That was my favorite one. But so I got to actually see a lot of Hollywood and the entertainment industry, and what it was like. And LA is a great place because it's like 65 degrees all the time. It's beautiful. So I liked that. So I kind of enchanted when I went to LA. But there was something about the need, like no one's going to just give you $100 million and be like, go make your Star Wars movie. I was like, I want to do these things now because I think people are more creative when they're younger, when they have their passion burning like 100%, like they're hungry, they want to contribute, they want to make their mark on the world. And I think that's when people are most creative and most passionate. I didn't want to waste my years working my way up a ladder in Hollywood until I was like 40. And then finally, if I even was good enough or lucky enough, I didn't go to a film school. It just felt very inaccessible to me, even though I was doing an internship. And then I thought for a bit like production would be interesting because economics, theater, they kind of mesh well in that role just because you're managing budgets and stuff, and it's very business oriented, but also you have some creative ideas, and that could be in the cards in the future. But I think I went back to just playing music more and more, and something clicked where I was like, why don't I just create music? Like do kind of what George Lucas tried to do with Star Wars or did with Star Wars. And I try and do that with music. So take the hero's journey, and kind of adapt that to my own life, and how you can kind of see the transition of childhood to adulthood in those turbulent years that I was living, trying to find out who I was and how I can make that a story. And so I just decided that summer in Hollywood, I didn't decide to pursue music. I decided to start writing my own music as a hobby. But I was like hoping, I was still in the back of my mind. It was so ambivalent. Like the future was so cloudy. But I didn't really care. I was very in the moment. Very much like, okay, Hollywood doesn't look great for me. I also had interned in Washington, D.C. before because, like I said, before I wanted to be into theater, before I joined the theater major, I was like a very economics person. And I was like, I'm going to go be a politician or work in D.C. and influence the country and help, and change the world that way. But when I went to work in D.C., I was like, these people are crooks. So, and it's just like, it's not fun. No one was looking like they liked their life. I guess there's some people that like it, but it felt like a small town. It felt very unappealing, and I thought I could do better than get trapped into that system where you have to be like a sycophant. And, I just never felt like I met anyone real there where I worked. And I worked at 2 different places. So I knew I didn't want to be a politician. I knew I didn't want to be like some hardcore job like a banker, because there is no creativity in that, as far as I know. I mean, from what my friends who are bankers, I can tell that there's no creativity in that. They're just looking at Excel sheets from like 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. They barely get any sleep. I'm more of like a leisurely, laid-back person, so, that's not going to cut it for me. So I also like doing things on my own time and my own, like, schedule kind of thing. And eventually, by the time the senior year of my college experience had started, I was writing songs and I was also looking for jobs. But I was not really passionate about any of the single places. I was just applying to places because all my friends were applying to places. That's where the momentum takes you. It's like, oh, now you're about to graduate in 6 months with an economics degree from one of the better schools in the country. You can get a job almost anywhere. And I was like, yeah, but do I want to do that? Like, I'm not just trying to be like a rebellious teen. It's like I really feel like there's another purpose for me. I feel like I can do something, even if I wasn't actually doing anything at the time other than writing songs, with just a guitar and a vocal. I wasn't even recording them, just writing them and playing them in my room for myself. So I had no idea if people even liked it, right? I don't even know if they were good. They were just honest because I was going through some tough times, and I felt like it was a diary almost, a journal, but also that at the end of it, there was like a light at the end of the tunnel, that there was like by doing this, I'm going to come out of it as the person I want to be, even though I don't know what I want to be, but I just know that I want to be someone who creates. So senior year, I'm looking for all these jobs, and the more I go and look and I'm so dispassionate, not interested in it, I'm just doing it to tell my parents, oh, I applied at this place. Oh, I didn't get in. Like, they'd ask me in the interviews, like, why'd you want to work here? And I was always like, I like literally didn't know what to say. Like, apparently there's an answer that you're supposed to prepare. I never prepared a single interview. I'm not even joking. Even this one's not prepared. I'm just stream of consciousness. But I'm just telling my life story. Anyway, so part of the theater major is you have to do a performance. You have to. And that was one of the things that was holding me back. Because like I said, I was such a shy person before I started doing theater. And I was like, oh my God, if I join the theater major, if I apply to it and they accept me, I'm going to have to do a performance. Like, that's your thesis. It's half of half of it's a paper, a thesis like a paper, 30 pages, whatever it was. I think it was like 15 to 30 pages. And then the other half of it's a performance that you're doing live. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do that. Like, who's going to show up to my thing? Like, it just giving me anxiety. But I was like, it's coming, but I want to do all this other stuff so bad that I'm just going to eat it. And if I get too nervous, too anxious, I'll just drop the major and just do econ. But I will have still done like 95% of the classes, and then I just won't graduate with a diploma, but I will have still done everything pretty much. I just don't have to do the performance. So that was a big thing. It was like I was super, super anxious about the performance for like a year, maybe 2 years. Every time I would think about it, I'd be like, oh my God, that's going to be so weird. And I didn't even know what I wanted to do. Like I'm saying, I just didn't know. I was like, am I going to make a short film? I'm going to write a script and have people read it. And then since I was writing songs, I was like, I'm also kind of a lazy person insofar as the easiest thing for me to perform were songs that I had already written. Or like I was writing songs, and I don't write a lot of songs. So I usually spend a lot of time writing one song before moving, and mostly because I'm also learning at the same time, right? So I had written like, at that point, start of senior year, I had probably written 2 songs, a lot of like melodies that I had no words to. But I was very raw in my songwriting. And actually, the first song I ever wrote is the bonus song for this album, is Love Project. I wrote that in LA. And it was like very different because I reworked it. So it's like the first song I wrote, but the last song that I produced, because it was so amateurish. And I guess, I don't know, maybe it still is a little bit amateurish because I'm still learning, but it was so raw and I didn't know what I was doing. But there was something to it that I kept coming back to. And so when I produced it, all I had to do was fix the bridge. And now I feel like it actually works. So that's the bonus song. It's the first song I ever wrote. I'm saying bonus song. I haven't decided yet. It could be the 3rd song on the album. It's just a question of marketing now. So like strategy, like you want to stay, relevant for a long time, Anyways, so off my tangent. I had written like Love Project and maybe a couple other songs that I never really felt the need to pursue further. And I knew I had this performance. They asked me at the beginning of the year, like, what are you going to do for this performance? I had spent the summer thinking about the paper because I'm also a very like analytical person. Like, what am I going to write about for my thesis? Because I've always wanted to be like a philosopher when I was a kid. When I was like in high school, I wanted like Rousseau, like Sartre, like all those people were like, I was like, oh man, I want to be like them. I was like the philosophy kid senior year of high school. It was really weird. I was like that kid. I wasn't even that kid because I was like shy, so I wouldn't participate in class very much, but I would get like I would just do very well on the philosophy class, like on the assignments and the exams and the national exam, even though it's known to be extremely hard, because of course it is. When you're 16 years old, 17 years old, you can't philosophize. You have to be a little bit more mature, I think, but I was good at like arguing and debating and like doing all that. So I always thought I was smart. I was like, oh, I'm smarter than everyone because I actually understand Rousseau, even though I didn't understand. But I was able to convey better than other people that you know what I mean? And so I always wanted to be a philosopher. Then I wanted to be a politician, philosopher, the philosopher king type thing. because I was just like, I didn't know what I was doing. But I was like, yeah, I could probably fix the world if they gave me the keys. And then I just kind of, transitioned to a more personal, intimate, creative pursuit, where it was not like, I'm going to be the king of the world and I'm going to change it and I'm going to solve all the problems. It's more like I can inspire people through my music, and that inspired myself to get out of these holes that I was in. And hopefully the same way George Lucas inspired me, I could do that for the next generation. By kind of mythologizing myself, or my story, and giving that a roadmap. So as the year went by, I knew I was going to write about the hero's journey. And so that's what my thesis was about. It was like the hero's journey. It's the hero's journey mixed with rituals, like traditions, the liminal space, and a very academic analysis of that. That was like one of the books I read. And then the third book was a book I had read right at the start of college, freshman year. And it was On Revolution by Hannah Arendt. And it was, again, it's like when I was in my philosopher phase. So I like spent a lot of time trying to understand it because no one else in my class could understand it. Because it's very Hegelian, actually. Well, anyways, that book is all about how society or history has changed a lot from one event. Like before, her theory is that before the French Revolution, history worked differently than after it. That before it was always just, there was no purpose to history, to world history. There was no drive. It was just circular, cyclical. It's like kings get deposed, peasants rebel. It's always kind of the same thing. But after the French Revolution, people realized they could be free. That, oh my God, I don't have to have a king. Like, and it's not that the revolution even worked, because it took years before they had a republic that was stable. Like literally until the 1960s or something crazy. But it was the fact that people were like, I don't have to be a peasant because I'm born a peasant, and because this guy's a king, he has to be king. Like they looked at the US and they were like, look, everyone that settled there from England, they're all free now. They're all free. They don't have their king. I mean, they had a king, but they're free in terms of like their economic opportunity. That's just what they thought. Whatever it was like they realized after the American Revolution, which was earlier, that people could be free. So essentially, I looked at On Revolution as another roadmap for revolutionizing myself, as a way to like, there's something that there has to be a moment between childhood and adulthood, these two different things, where I can switch the flip and I will become something else. Like I will be the person like a person I've been thinking about becoming, or like what I should become. Going from thinking about who you're going to be, like, oh, I want to be an astronaut one day, to actually becoming that person and what that looks like. Because once you're like committed, you're kind of like in. And you do that by actually making things, right? And by doing things. You're not a banker until you start working at a bank and you could be like, oh, I want to be a banker. You're not a musician until you actually start making music and releasing it and going through the failures and the successes that come. You fail, you learn, you succeed. You keep trying. You have to keep trying. But it's by going through that journey of challenge and out of your comfort zone that you start to become who you actually want to be or are meant to be. And I don't know if there's anything that's meant to be, but like it almost feels that way. So I started making I had made music. I was writing about the hero's journey. I was starting to understand about the transition from adulthood to childhood, and it just, everything came together that was like, I have to keep writing my songs and I have to actually like pursue this. So I knew I had to write my songs, keep writing my songs, and actually try and make them good and like top level, like the people that inspired me, like the people that I was playing. And that, like, oh my God, you know what? Maybe I can get good at writing songs because I was so shy, too shy, and not motivated to join a film club, a theater club. There's just too many people involved. Music, you can do it on your own. You could. Like, you just need a guitar, a vocal, and that's like what Bob Dylan did. He just ran, I mean, he had a couple other instruments, but like really, like he got big by going around, I think, New York, playing in little clubs, little bars, and just guitar, vocal. It was all, and he didn't even sing that well. You know, it was all about the songwriting. And I had been studying writing in the theater program for like a year and a half now. So I knew I had to get into the music for the performance, and so I did. I guess I decided to center it around a kind of toxic relationship. Kind of like Igor. If you know Igor by Tyler, the Creator, it's similar. It's like, except the genders are a little different, and the sexuality is different in Igor. That's like about a homosexual relationship that he desires with someone who's taken by a girl. Right, so a guy's... Okay, so anyways...
I'm sorry.
Essentially, I decided to write I was feeling a certain way. I wrote my songs about how I feel because I feel like the best theater, the best movies come from being honest and honesty. Just feeling sad or like losing hope and not happy, I would say. Just like not where I wanted to be. And lonely as well. So it all came together. It's a lot of different emotions, not just like one emotion. And so it was what inspired this album, and what essentially wasn't an album at the time, but it was a theater performance. And so I wrote 4 songs before the performance, and I performed those 4 songs. And those 4 songs were the first song I had ever written, which was Love Project. The second song I had ever written, which was Blue Moon. Third song, which was Project Dreams. And another song called Rise, which I've had to cut from the album because I don't really like it anymore. And they have a kind of arc, a mini kind of hero's journey, those 4 songs, or at least like Love Project would be the first song in the story. Project Dream, where meet cute, you can say. And then the second, Project Dreams, is the kind of, reflective inner song about my feelings. And the third song was Blue Moon, which is like the kind of turn, the revolution. It's like there was a blue moon, but now it's gone. I was sad, but now I've decided to move on. And then Rise is like the future, like the third act, you could say, the end. Anyways, that was the first time I ever played for people. And it was just me on a guitar. I did have some piano parts, but none of those songs were on the piano. My original songs were on the guitar. I played some covers on the piano. But people really liked it. Like, I was really anxious about who would come and stuff, but people came, like a lot of people came. I'd say like 40 people, which was a lot for a TAPS major performance. A lot of people I didn't even know, because I didn't really market it or push it. I was just like too shy about it. And I did ask my friends if they wanted to come, but I didn't insist, I think. Or at least I don't remember it being like that. Anyways, so that performance was just about that. And it was like after that performance, I just felt free. Like my desire to be a musician was finally like clear. Like the reaction I got from the crowd, the ability to be honest and like emotional and vulnerable with the singing and the playing guitar and showing what I'm capable of to the world as opposed to keeping it for myself. It was like I was breaking out of my shell finally. And that was like a week or two before graduation. So graduation happened. I had to get a job, so I like was like, oh, I'll do this like financial advisory job. And I literally, because it was gonna like be, they let me have a summer beforehand, and I wanted a summer because I like going on vacation, and I quit that job like within a minute. Like, I'm not even joking. I spent like a day there, and then I told my parents because I was already in Chicago. I was paying my own rent. I was like, I'm gonna do music, because I'd been telling them I don't want to do this business stuff. I want to do music. Or I didn't even say music at the time. I wanted to be like a creative person. I wanted to be like George Lucas. And that's when I decided the songs I have for my my thesis project were solid, but I could build on them because people had told me, dude, you should put your music on the internet. Like, they're good. Like, you should like share this with the world, not with just us. And so that really inspired me to pursue that. And so I started recording in Chicago, like on a really shitty equipment, very bad microphones, not like what we have now. And I was getting, I was trying to record the songs I had written, but I kept writing more. And still exploring that kind of dark time, the sour relationship, the toxic relationship, if it even was a relationship. And that's when I decided to move back to New York, because I was like, I'm gonna take this really serious. Like, Chicago, it's fine, but I need like more of my entourage, the people that know me, to really support me, because I knew a couple people in Chicago, but like, you really need to launch yourself. You need to know, you have people there to help you and like support you. And so I came back to New York, and right after COVID-19 pandemic hit. And so, the whole time my parents are like, kind of like pressuring me, like, oh, you have to get a job. And I was like, no, but they didn't hear my music yet. I hadn't shared anything with them. I was like, I'm going to be a musician. They're like, yeah, right. Of course. And then as the pandemic went on, it was like, I had a freedom all of a sudden, because I was here in this room and no one could leave. That they weren't hiring new jobs. So I just suddenly had this period, and they were giving stimuluses. So there was this like period of time where I was like, this is it. Like, I'm going to just fully commit to this and buy all this equipment, and that's when I would spend days just watching YouTube videos on how to mix songs, how to record songs, how to produce songs, just like I had done with how to write songs and how to learn how to play guitar and stuff. And over the period of lockdown, which is already a very isolating and lonely experience, right? Because you're not seeing your friends for months. You're not seeing anything. You're not going out to movies anymore. You're not going out to clubs. You're not going out to restaurants. So I was just in this room, locked, and it just got me more in my feels, more into thinking and reflecting on my past and how I'm about to enter adulthood, and how I this is it. Like, this is music. I'm going to full send it. And over the course of about a year, I wrote more songs. Some of the new songs that I wrote in this bedroom were Back to the Start and Goodbye Future Stranger. And then I reworked like Love Project and stuff. So those songs are the most recent songs, I guess. And they're very different genre of style from Project Dream's Blue Moon, right? Which were the first songs I wrote. And you can tell those are very singer-songwriter, acoustic guitar, vocal. But as I got more skilled in mixing and more skilled in producing, my sound changed more towards the people that I actually like to listen to. Daft Punk, Kanye West, Kid Cudi. Just where it's like produced, it's not just folk. And that's where I think if I do a second album, it's gonna go. It's like as I get better at everything, because I'm from all the practice, I'm singing more, I'm playing guitar more, my skills get better, and as I learn, how to record things better, how to mix things better, like what I can do and what I can't do, I feel like the music that you hear, the most recent songs, Love Project, Somebody, it's like that. That's the kind of vision I have for my artistic style, aesthetic. Yeah. So, but for now, I'm focused on releasing my first album, and it's called Project Dreams, because I think that's the song that most captures my feelings and the whole kind of philosophy behind this album, which is about not having what you want, and that like kind of stress that causes, and anxiety and sadness, especially when it comes to like love. Like if you want to love so bad, but there's like a roadblock to that, whether it's the other person, not being fully honest or fully committed, or sometimes people aren't meant for each other, and that could create toxicity. And when you're like lonely, it could like really, like things could, fantasies, right, can like turn into nightmares very quickly. And that's kind of what Project Dreams is about. And it's about that hope, that drives us through like the tough times, and like holding on to a certain hope, even though there's so much despair. And that was all amplified during the pandemic, of course. So that really holds through in all the like song and production decisions. Another song, Somebody, that one I wrote originally in Chicago back when I was partying a lot after I graduated. I'd been partying a lot, and I just like kind of was like, this is always the same thing I'm doing with my friends. We're going out, we're getting drunk, we're trying to find a girl, and really what I'm trying to look for is someone to love, right? And when it's just constantly same thing and it's never working, you're just like, well, shit, like this is kind of a weird dance that we do as young adults, right? And some of your friends find their ones and stuff, like whatever. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not. I think it's mythological, perhaps, which is kind of something carried through in this album. And part of the transition from childhood to adulthood in this album is the realization that maybe it is a myth, that Disney Channel love thing was an attachment that I had when I was immature and childlike. And maybe that realizing that love in a mature sense is not, there is no one. It's like destined for you. It's more like it's honestly, to me, it just seems like a lot of infatuation. I don't even know. It's just like whatever I had, those feelings for people, like previous crushes, it was like always infatuation. It was never love, deep love. And maybe it's real, maybe it's not. But the whole point is that the people that you're looking for when you're out clubbing and stuff, that's not real. There's just not. It's not. Like, that's not how you get to know anyone. Maybe it works for some people, but it didn't work for me. It didn't work for my friends. And that's what Somebody's about. It's like, I'm going out, I'm partying, I'm having fun, but am I really getting what I want when I'm having fun? And the song is built as a dance song because that's what you're doing. You're dancing, you're going out. Anyways, so that's Somebody. That's one of my favorite songs on the album. It's probably the one I worked on the longest, the most, just because I really wanted to get it right, because I felt it had potential just in its catchiness and in this beat and the drums and just the style, the aesthetic, and it's a very simple song. So I just felt, okay, if I work on this one a lot and get it to where I want, I'll be happy. The other one's also similar, but I always kept coming back to Somebody because I wanted to perfect it. So yeah, that one's coming out soon, probably before this interview comes out, but so it'll be out by then. And we just filmed the music videos a couple of days ago, and those will be out as well. So yeah, I think, is there any other questions?
We can talk about Back to the Start.
Yeah, I did. I talked about Back to the Start a little bit. Okay, I'll talk about it more.
You talk about when you wrote it.
Yeah. Okay. So we filmed the music videos for Somebody, Project Dreams, and Back to the Start. And I chose Back to the Start to be the first song off my album because Back to the Start was, at the time, the most recent song I had written. And I had always kind of learned in the writing classes that when you want to start a story, don't start a story from the beginning, start from like the middle or the end. And the way I wanted to tell this story was like, Back to the Start's me in this pandemic. How am I feeling? And it's not necessarily a COVID song about, I wish we can go back to the world before we had this big event change everything. But because that's what we were living in, it's kind of like that's what happened. Like, it subconsciously enmeshed with my feelings and so my truths. And so it just kind of worked perfectly towards that. And I felt like that's a good way to start the album, because you start the story at the end. It's like, not right now, I'm feeling like this. And it's about, I wanted to go back to that time when it was happy. You know, that kind of honeymoon period or phase where everything's like rosy and you feel like, oh my God, this Disney Channel love is real. Like, you know, this like Prince Charming princess thing is like, oh my God, like this is how it feels like when you're in the honeymoon phase. And that's what you want to go back to when you're back to being lonely. Well, after you've accepted, after the Goodbye Future Stranger, after Gone, after Blue Moon, after Home, you know, at the very end, after all that growth, there are sometimes moments of like weakness where you're like, I wish I could just do it again, knowing what I know now, and give it a real shot with the maturity I have now, not believing in these fairy tales necessarily, that now I could do it right. But that's not true. You know, like you probably can't do that. So it's like an impossible desire. It's like Project Dreams. They kind of relate. It's like, I want something, but I can't have it. And I want to go back, but I can't have that, you know? And so that was Back to the Start. It was a good way to start the story. It's a good also introduction to my aesthetic of music, I think, because it really has that singer-songwriter vibe in the beginning and in the end. But it also has that kind of party chorus, that vibe of intensity, 100% to the max with a lot of production behind it, you know. And that song is more rock and roll style production with, you know, the bass guitar, the electric guitars, the acoustic guitars on both sides of the mix, and almost like a screaming vocal. Very rock and roll style, but it has like an electro pop beat. You know, that sounds a lot like the beginning of Bury a Friend by Billie Eilish. It's like and then it has a vocoder just to differentiate it. Like you don't really hear rock and roll songs where you have the like a robot voice coming in the chorus. So I just put in like, because I always want to do like mixing old and new. You know, I want to mix old style folk writing, folk songwriting, you know, AABA, taglines, all that stuff, and a lot of repetition and short songs with modern production elements. Because there's a reason someone like Bob Dylan was so successful in his songwriting. And songwriting these days is so formulaic. I feel like it's so always the same thing on the radio. It's always, you know, it changes a little bit, but it's always kind of the same. And I wanted to do something different. And I wanted to express my voice and my story and my honesty and my truth. So, and I felt Back to the Start captures the story about wanting to go back. It captures the Project Dreams element of it. It captures, or the story is about wanting to go back. The story is about despair and loneliness. It captures the wanting something impossible, but it also captures the musical aesthetics of singer-songwriter and, I guess, modern production. So, yeah, that's Back to Start. first song. In these music videos that we did, we like came up with this concept of having, well, you, Moyo, came up with the concept of, well, you can cut that. The director came up with, so the director in the writing process of these videos came up with an idea of, for somebody, of it being me. All she said was like, I have an idea for somebody, it's weird, but it's like you and a Venus statue. And I was like, okay, I like it. Because I like weird things. You know, there's a lot of weird elements to my music because I like throwing people off. Not even throwing people off. I just like to have fun. I don't really care what people think. I feel like I have good taste in things, and I think that's what makes a good artist, is having good taste. And so I trust my taste, and if I'm having fun, then I think the music's going to follow. It's going to be good. And if I'm expressing my honesty and my truth in the lyrics and in the song, then it's good to go. That's all I care about. So, yeah. Venus. So that's why I like the idea of Venus. So I think, okay, so no, but like it felt like it worked with the whole point of my album. It was that it's someone who's extremely desirable, almost mythical, like that Disney fairy tale love, right? And the goddess of love, she like embodies all of that. But she's also not real. And the person in my album is not real either. The relationship isn't real. It's all fictitious, imaginary, projected, right? That Disney love doesn't exist. It's all in my head. And the Venus thing is the same thing in these music videos. And she comes to life at a party to solve my loneliness. And it's like, does this Disney fairy tale princess thing, is that born out of loneliness? You know, that's the kind of question it poses. Like, where does that come from? And I think that's really well encapsulated in the video, in the music video for Somebody. And I think it was a really smart concept. And we decided to work that concept out more and include it into all of the videos and all the stories, just because that is a truth throughout the album. That it's a fixation on something that's not real, and a fixation on the imaginary, and a healthy one but soothing one, you know, like a drug. And a lot of people make the connection between drugs and love, but it's more like drugs and infatuation. And you see Venus and you're like, wow, she's so beautiful. Like, I wish she could be the one I spend the rest of my time with. You know, that's what I feel like in the myths, people who would come across the goddess of love, even the other gods, you know, that was like, she was the ultimate desire. But it's not love. It's like infatuation, that first instinct. So I think that's why Venus captures well. And it's a really cool concept, and I'm really excited to see the final product and what she's gonna, like, what that's gonna look like. There's a lot of things happening with the different alternate reality versions of me, or timeline versions of me, where it's like New York City me and me having fun in nature encounter each other, and there's an exchange with the Venus. Like, what does that mean? All that stuff is very exciting, and it also ties into the fact that of the old and new, my musical aesthetic of mixing old and new matches with this Venus. It's perfectly symbolized by that because she's a Greek goddess, and we have the Venus de Milo statue, which is an ancient Greek piece of art, right? Work of art. Venus de Milo is Roman, maybe. So the Venus de Milo, I think, is from the ancient world. So, and it's in the Louvre. And so, I don't know, it just all worked together. And then one of the songs, Project Dreams, was already inspired by Baudelaire, because he had a poem called Les Projets, the projects, but not like the projects in terms of like the living establishments, more like the projects in terms of like the projections, the dreams, right? And that's very much what my album's about. It's like the projections, it's the Venus. It's like I'm projecting Venus onto people, the goddess of love, the fake, mythical, even though it's not real. And so that album's about, basically Project Dreams is an adaptation of that album, so of that poem. So that poem, you just look at Project Dreams as the same thing. And then the music video is a video adaptation of that poem. So I don't need to explain it. And so Baudelaire wrote, other poems, and in one of those it was Venus and the Fool, and it's about how this kind of ridiculous jester character is like crying at the base of a Venus statue. And it was really pertinent to everything that bringing in this Venus symbol is something that was already attached to my musical origins. The Baudelaire poems that inspired my second or third song, Project Dreams, right? At the inception at the birth of my musical career was like Charles Baudelaire. And the idea that we're taking something that he talked about in another poem that I had no idea about, the Venus and the Fool, and using that in a music video really captures what I'm trying to talk about. So I'm very excited to see what Venus looks like in the final product.